Greetings and bienvenue, Midnight Crew. Thank you for returning to this broadcast, and welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
Be me, down in Falster, the southernmost bit of Denmark, having a chill little time in a summer house, drinking wine at night and swimming in the day. The nearby town has just over 700 people and essentially nothing to do. Never really see anyone around. It used to be one of the main ways for German tourists to arrive for a holiday in Denmark, but has essentially fallen to ruin. I decided one night whilst drunk to get on my bike and cycle to see the lighthouse at night. Google Maps says it's a 10-minute ride. Say my goodbyes, hop on the cycle, and start biking down the street. Now, it's dark in Falster. There are no street lights where I was. No sounds, and no real indication of where to go. End up taking a dirt track towards the lighthouse. Fucking stupid idea. It obviously hadn't been maintained for years. The trail gets worse and worse. I really have to push through now. I end up getting off the bike and continuing forwards on foot. It keeps getting narrower and narrower. I'm tripping over vines and getting hit in the face by thorns now. But I'm drunk as fuck, so just continue onwards. Wanna see that lighthouse? Got it. Suddenly see bright purple light ahead of me through the trees. Immediately turn off bike lights and slow down my pace. This obviously does not make sense. I'm in the capital of bumfuck nowhere at 11 p.m. on a glorified dirt track. There shouldn't be anything out there. Continue anyway. Absolutely shitting myself. Start to see that there are 3 or 4 door-shaped purple lights up ahead, with other smaller lights moving around and interacting. Now standing right by them, but they're in a clearing while I'm on the dirt track. We're separated by trees. I can hear them speaking. Yell out HEJ. All the moving lights turn towards me. I can see very little from what the purple lights are reflecting on. Immediately hear,
"What are you doing? Who are you?"
like an artist say, "I'm going to see the lighthouse." Silence.
"Well, you didn't see anything here. Just rocks and moss, yes."
I agree that I have only seen rocks and moss. Continue walking, but can hear obviously that I'm being followed at a distance. Finally come to a clearing. Step out and flash. Fucking lighthouse is lighting up all of the fields in a 2 kilometers radius every 7 seconds. So much for being stealthy and fucking off. There are 3 old cars with their boots open, sitting with the lights off, but no one inside as far as I can see. Go to right away on the bike, but thorns and vines have blocked up the wheels. Great. Start highlighting towards the lighthouse on foot. Call the guy we were staying with to come pick me up. Now, one of the car's lights turns on. Amazing. Now just running in darkness for 6 seconds at a time carrying the bike. Assume that I've either seen portals to a different dimension or be alien. Thankfully, the guy gets there in around 10 or so minutes. Felt like an eternity though. Get in the car. He's asking what the fuck happened. Explain.
"Oh yeah, Anon. That's probably the hillbillies growing weed. You're pretty lucky they were polite."
Det giver mening. 10-minute bike ride my ass.
Around 2004 or 2005 or so, me and 2 mates sat at a similar but slightly bigger dock just a bit left to this one. Couldn't find the photo, but you get the idea. We sat at this dock and just looked out on the water. It was during the summer, so shit was hot and no skies were present. Great times, simpler times. Anyways, at one point a bright, strong blue light emerges from the right side of the lake from our neighbor town. This light starts out being small, but big enough to see. I assume we were at least 8 kilometers away but could still see it. But the split second after we saw this bright, blue light emerge, it just took over the whole fucking sky just like that. It was like a carpet of bright, blue light got shot out of this place and covered the whole sky. It only lasted for a maximum of 5 seconds, and writing it up makes me feel like a total schizophrenic. But I was there with 2 mates who still to this day remembers it. It was probably just a transformer station doing things, I don't know, but it was nice and weird. Happened in Denmark.
Last year, I visited Denmark and took a day to wander along the beach and look into some of the destroyed World War II fortifications they still have standing around there. Either way, the pictures were neat, so I saved them all on my PC. When I realized there was one that I didn't take myself. I'm not entirely sure, but it looked like it was taken from below one of the cracks in one of the bunkers that I went into deeper. The crack looked rather similar to one that I walked over when I went inside, but I didn't think there was anything. Not even a room. Below. That's not the creepy part, though, since it might also have been an entirely different crack that I just don't remember taking. The weird part is that I saved it on my PC. Even fucking posted it here on X because I was bored and it was mildly creepy. But on the next day, it was gone. Couldn't find it on my phone. Couldn't find it on my PC, not in the trash bin. Either, couldn't find the thread anymore. Which wasn't creepy, it got nearly no replies, but also couldn't find it in the archive. That's all there is to the story, so nothing too creepy since basically nothing really happened, but still. A bit unnerving on some level. At least to me. I also might need to add that this part of the North Sea coast was rather near the place where I made the only ever experience that I might describe as mildly not normal. That I can't explain with sleep deprivation, a fragile mind, and abuse of medicine.
I've seen shitloads of paranormal stuff in my life, but all but one occurrence can be traced back to sleep deprivation, too much medicine, and psychological problems. The one time I saw something that wasn't just a hallucination brought by any of these reasons was really creepy, though, since I wasn't the only one that saw it. It was during a vacation with friends at the coast of Denmark. Me and another friend decided we wanted to go to the beach at night because I absolutely adore the feeling that you get at the beach at night, when you can only see the nothingness of the sea and the sky in front of you and the wind and waves drown out every sound. It's incredible, really. Either way, we were chilling at the beach when we suddenly saw an old-timey ship pretty much right there in front of us. It was only for a second or so until it was over, but we both did see it, which is weird considering that it was too dark to clearly see a ship without lights. Be way too close to the shore for a ship that size. The area where we saw it must have been shallow enough for us to still walk instead of swimming. See, definitely not the type of ship that would still be active nowadays. We also both felt the stereotypical feeling of dread, but I'm pretty sure that that's just a natural reaction to seeing something that couldn't and or shouldn't be there. Could never talk to her about it, either, since she refused to talk about it and we lost contact, since.
Medium-sized town in Jutland, Denmark. There's a small park in the south end, and in this park are two quite large trees right next to each other. Probably about 100 years old, so not ancient by any means. And between them in the ground is lodged a boulder. Two things of note: the trunks and crowns of the trees seem to have grown toward each other, almost as if they are reaching, and the other thing, Denmark is not a rocky country. So seeing a big boulder lodged in a grass patch is quite unusual. Story goes that on the wedding day of two young lovers, a witch appeared between the pair, just as they were reaching arms to sanctify the marriage. An older tradition, nowadays we use the symbolism of the kiss instead. The hag stretched her arms out and threw the lovers in separate directions, cackling while she cursed them and transformed them into trees. Just then, another voice spoke. Some say a good witch, some say a preacher. In any case, it was someone good in nature. The voice spoke, they may be but trees now, but at least they will live and grow. You will be but a rock, dead and lifeless eternally. And so it was. The good witch, or the preacher, could do nothing to save the lovers. But through the years they have been reaching for each other. It's custom for visitors to the park to stomp on the rock, thinking the stoned witch can still feel the pain.
The Helhorse from Denmark. Not an urban legend, folklore, hope it's all right. In Denmark, when a new church had to be built, an animal, sometimes a horse, was buried before the construction began. In case of the animal being a horse, one of its legs was chopped off and it was buried alive, so that it until the judgment day would be trapped between life and death. This horse would then haunt the local town, showing itself as a decaying body, sometimes without a head. Seeing it either meant that you were going to die, or you could die as a result of seeing it, which could happen if you walked outside later that night. You could hear the Helhorse before you could see it because it walked on 3 legs and the horseshoe on its 3rd hoof wasn't attached properly, giving off a distinct sound when walking. An example of a site where the Helhorse was well known was the Roskilde Cathedral. Inside the cathedral on the floor is a giant black gravestone without any inscriptions on. It is said a Helhorse is buried beneath, and that in the night the Helhorse will rise from beneath the stone, and whoever might be inside the church when the Helhorse does this, may God have mercy on his soul. The story. The father was walking outside late evening with his daughter. The father at a point finds his daughter looking back and he asks what's wrong.
But Dad, didn't you even see the gray horse walking by?
When they get home, the daughter gets terribly sick and dies later. Another story. Not entirely related. A man walks home alone one night. Upon finding a horse walking by itself, he climbs the horse for a ride home. The man tries to make the horse walk in the middle of the road, but instead it walks on the side of the road. So the man slaps the horse on its head, which causes its head to fall off. In terror, he falls of the horse himself, but as he looks back on the horse, its head is now attached again, staring at the man.
Why do they do that? Why does every church need to have a Helhorse? If I were in charge, I wouldn't willingly haunt a church with shit that kills you on sight.
It's about sacrifice. In the Balkan states, they used to bury the owner's shadow under the base stone when a new building was built. This practice guarantees that the building will be long-lasting. In Romania, we have a legend related to this myth. A group of Wallach's finest builders, a team of 10 masters led by Manel, were assigned by Negru Voda, Wallach's ruler at the time, to build the greatest monastery they could conceive, near the citadel of Arges. Manel and his team agreed, but there was one problem. Everything they built over the day was collapsing over the night. The solution was shown to Manel in his dream. The builders would have to wall someone in, alive. They agreed that the first of their wives that would come to bring food next morning would be walled. Naturally, that poor woman was Anna, Manel's wife. Manel built the monastery of Arges around Anna, a monastery that still stands today. After the job was done, Negru Voda congratulated the team and asked if they could build an even greater monastery. The builders, which were in the monastery at the time, bragged with pride that they could. Then, Negru Voda ordered the ladders cut off so that the workers could not build something greater than his monastery. So, Manel's crew jumped towards their deaths. This myth is at the very core of our culture. Any building, if to last, requires sacrifice, even if just symbolic.
Be 13 years old. School trip for 3 days over the weekend, going to visit Denmark. Make us do tasks and challenges. If we fail, we get various punishments. I'm in a group with 3 of my buddies. Having a laugh. Not taking it too serious. Our task is to make food for the teachers. Don't give a shit. So we don't have to choose between our punishment. 100 push-ups and 100 sit-ups. Don't eat dinner. Sleep in an ancient Viking grave. Easy choice. Apparently our teachers thought we'd pick the push-ups and sit-ups, so they had to go and ask the local forest warden if they could dump 4 kids in an old king's tomb. He agrees, since they sign his papers and so on. Only double-chambered tomb ever discovered. Pick related. We get dumped there. And are all acting mighty and tough. When inside in our sleeping bags with our flashlights, we start joking about how Freja would come down and show us herself. Teenage logic. Then we start to doze off. And everything is really fucking quiet. In the room next door, likely the local queen at the time's tomb, we hear footsteps. Rather loud. Not deafening, just as loud as a person would walk. Then the sound of etching on stone. Like with a chisel. We don't say a word, we just lay in our bags and pray it's the warden or the teachers. Teachers wake us next morning with hot cocoa and shove us into the bus. 2 days later, we all get reprimanded for vandalizing a national landmark. Apparently the runic words for I am happy for you were etched in the other room. I still think it's there to this day. Like it's literally carved in stone. I like to think that whatever chieftain, warlord or local king and his queen was buried there. We're happy to have company, but I'm not sure.
Hello there, X. This is going to be quite the topic, so please bear with me regarding the wall of text. I think it is justified to understand my thought process regarding it all. About 2 years ago, I was out and about smoking weed. I would usually go into a forest area to smoke away from the prying eye of the public, since here in Denmark it is illegal. I live nearby a kindergarten which has a back trail that leads into a forest area. I lit up my blunt with some music in my ear. About 5 minutes into smoking, I felt like something was staring at me outside my peripheral vision. As I turn, I see this ball of light hovering over the tree crowns and was emitting this diminished bright blue color. I only stared at it for what felt like half a second, then it shot up into the air and went out like a flare. I ran back home, believing I had some sort of psychosis, only coming to the epiphany that it lit up the nearby trees and ground with the light it was emitting. I tried to rationalize it by researching it, thinking it might have a scientific explanation. The closest thing I could find was lighting balls, which is a natural occurrence that can happen. The thing is that there was no skies, there were no hot and cold air meeting which could catalyze into a lighting ball. I quickly dismissed it and went about my life, After a week or so had passed, I started getting this weird recurring experience when I was about to fall asleep. I suffer from sleep paralysis, but this was nothing like it. Before falling asleep, I would feel like my field of vision switched from my eyes to my forehead, and as I reached some optimum level at forehead height, I would suddenly start to see things clearly despite my eyes being closed and I was about to fall asleep. The things I saw were as clear as day and it was hard to vocalize, but it felt like it lasted a long time, but as I woke it felt like a split second and I would have to quickly scribble down what I saw. Otherwise I would forget within a time frame of 2 to 5 minutes what I had seen. Another weird thing with this episode was that each time I would wake up, I was gasping for air and it felt like I was jolted in the chest with electricity. I had recurring different episodes, the most prominent being me seeing light balls traveling in vast empty space side by side. Each passing time I had this experience, I would move closer and closer to the balls of light before waking up. This was the most normal thing I would experience during these episodes. I, however, also felt deviating things that only happened once. The most freaky of them being me being pulled out of a dark corridor, only to realize as I was pulled out of the dark corridor I realized I was pulled out of some ancient letter in an unknown language which I believe is Sanskrit. Right before I would wake up it would be revealed as old parchment paper with a lot of Sanskrit scribbled on it. This happened on and off for about a year before slowing down, and ultimately the episodes passed and I haven't experienced it since. At the moment I think it is some sort of subconscious mind trick, but I came here as a last resort hoping somebody could reinforce that belief or maybe offer an alternative answer to my question. During this ordeal that past year I grew infatuated with the night sky, hoping to see it again, to confirm what I saw was real. I never experienced the same thing again, but I did see numerous weird shining objects that would turn on and off traveling across the night sky. It came to a point where I started using a sat map and a flight tracking app to confirm whether I saw satellites or airplanes, because I am by nature not a believer in this stuff. Sometimes I would have these sudden urges to go and look at stars in the middle of the night for no apparent reason, and a good portion of the time I would see weird things that I couldn't explain. Light balls flying across the night sky, the light balls that would turn on and off. Different weird things. In the beginning I rationalized the light balls being airplanes, but when I started experiencing these light balls that would turn on and off as they flew across the night sky I dismissed it. I can't come up with a logical conclusion to it, but I hope you can offer some sort of answer to this and the aforementioned light ball flare thing mentioned above. Many thanks, Corvinius.
Very interesting. It is possible to capture paranormal events on camera. I guarantee you that. My father has some footage from one of his previous jobs, where some kind of transparent ball is hovering above the ground, then triggers a motion sensor, which is why it was discovered. It legitimately set off an alarm. So in this case, motion sensors work just fine. This was all recorded with surveillance cameras during nighttime. So I have no idea what it would look like during daytime, but it gave a pretty stable video of it moving across the hallway where he worked. There actually is a story behind that I can share with you guys if you're interested. But unfortunately, I promised my father not to share the video yet, due to the fact that we're uncertain what consequences it might have, as we believe this might be the best proof of paranormal activities ever caught. I'll definitely ask him again soon whether I may share it with you guys. Alright. I hope I'll get permission to post the video, but it's a bit tricky. You will understand why. Anyways, my father used to work in a jailhouse, so this is where it comes from. We will go back a couple of years. Like 4 or so. I'm eating dinner with my parents. Nothing unusual about that. My father is a very practical man and doesn't really believe in the paranormal and such. I'm still not sure what to believe in at this point, but I've always been fascinated. I have something to tell you, he said in a calm voice, but in that kind of way where you know it's going to be something unusual he's about to tell. As I said, my father used to work in a jailhouse as a guard. Every now and then, they need some extra backup. So we have this special unit in Denmark called Rigsholdet, which is basically a unit that is always ready to supply the police with extra employees when needed. You can imagine that some of these folks have been around quite a lot. Anyways, my father gets to work with this guy and he wants him to see something. Earlier that year, he had been in another jailhouse where he was shown some footage, which he brought with him, and later gave a copy to my father. The event takes place a couple years before this, probably around 2008 or 2009. I don't quite remember. I believe it was around 11:30 p.m. One night, the alarm goes off, can be seen in the surveillance program. There are placed motion sensors above every door, So the staff knows exactly where the alarm went off. So this night, the alarm went off at this specific door, and of course, the staff on duty that night rushed out to check what's going on. Nothing. They unlocked the cell, only to find the inmate sleeping. Weird. Anyways, the staff goes back to check the surveillance to see if there was anything. A mouse or so, or if it was just a bad sensor. He comes to the creepy part. There is nothing. Or is there? The camera is pointing down the hallway with cells on each side. If you speed up the video x2 or more, you can see some kind of fog, around the size of a basketball, hovering above the ground. It's somehow transparent, but it's possible to see that it's slightly bright. I doubt it would have been visible during daytime. It hovers down to an exact cell, as if it knew where it was headed, waits a second or two, then proceeds to move underneath the door. This is where the alarm goes off. The staff working that night didn't know what to do. One of them went back to bed, but the other guy couldn't get it out of his head. He then decides to check up on that specific cell to see if there have been any previous events. And yep, you guessed it, taken right out of a horror movie. Exactly 1 year earlier, a young guy in his 20s had committed self-end in that cell. I don't know what has happened afterwards, but I believe it was pretty much forgotten due to reputation and such. This really changed the way I feel about paranormal stuff. Same goes for my father. I have shown it to most of my friends, all of which have been shocked afterwards. I think there are some rather interesting things to discuss about this. Why is it shaped like a ball and not an actual person? Why does it happen exactly 1 year later? I haven't heard of any later events in the following years. But most importantly of all, this proves, to me at last, that it is possible to capture such events on camera. And it is a clear proof that the paranormal exists. This is why I recommend hunting footage during the nighttime. Please tell me what you think. I would love to hear your opinions on this. A friend of mine also experienced lots of paranormal events where he lives. But we haven't really had the guts to try and capture it yet, due to what we may be able to pick up.
And of course, he never posted the video.
I'm from Denmark.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel, as more green texts will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.